What's up? Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I am Morrow, your storyteller for today, and with me I have some more RPG horror stories. Out of all the RPG horror story genres, what is your favorite? Mine are the edgelord stories because they just kind of cross the boundary of what is reasonable and usually go absolutely buck wild. But what is your favorite type of RPG horror stories? And while you let me know that in comments below, we'll get to the first story for today. Putting a dumb stat in reading comprehension. This is in hindsight more funny than horror, but it's things like these that make online DMing just a pain. I used to short campaigns and one-shots on our community Discord server where DMs could put a recruitment post with information about the game in a channel, and then people would join in on a first come first serve basis. And I swear the inability of some people to read through a couple of bullet points before joining in will always surprise me. My favorite one with multiple at once was the following. Recruitment post. Warhammer Fantasy 4E will be played on clear day of the week, start an hour plus time zone plus minus 1 hour. Core rules only. Beginner friendly. New players welcome and will be taught basics before first session. Message me. Character will be made together during first session. From the 6 players who responded, only 2 actually understood those rules. The other 4 were the American, who apparently did not understand the concept of time zones and did not ask about it either until after missing the first session. Upset that we started without them while they were at work. Dropped out. On one hand, time zones make planning really difficult to do. On the other hand, Discord actually has this thing where you can put in like a time code that displays people local time directly. So like if it posts like 12 p.m. noon my time to somebody from Britain, it will say 5 p.m. GMT +1, and it's fantastic and it works really nicely. Time zones are a pain, but it takes a little bit of effort to make it work. The confused one, who adamantly believed we were playing some homebrew D&D game, did not join the new player pre-explained session because they played lots of times before. Then took half of session 1 to understand that this was indeed not D&D 5e at all. After many attempts, actually remained and I think enjoyed the game, even though they still tried doing D&D things out of habit from start to finish. Okay, that's kind of just wholesome. Like, yeah, I get it, they misread it, they probably expected a D&D session, but now, hey, they're looking for a new system and they're learning something new, so it's good for them. The veteran that brought a fully done, non-core rules character with suspiciously high stat lines to the table, ranting about how they weren't allowed to play that one and had to make a new one like everyone else. Kicked after insulting me and being rude to the new players for not knowing all the rules already and wasting his time. Wow, sounds like a charmer over here, damn. The uncooperative one, who after joining demanded that we completely change the designated game days to fit their personal schedule. Dropped after telling me off for being too inflexible to be a good DM, then blocked me. You know, that'd be nice by giving you a way out. You don't have to worry about them being present and stuff, and aside from some unnecessary drama, you kind of dodged a bullet with the player. You gotta make your games around your time available, because your time matters also, DM. Well, anyway, there's not really an ending to the story or anything, but we could just get a moral of this story. Reading comprehension, good. Reading comprehension, very good. Read, please. Read, please. The Bard opened with, I wanna seduce everyone. You know, I typically would be horrified, but I'm excited. I need a nice, good Bard doing Bard thing story. Unless it's really creepy, then I don't want that. Since getting back into D&D in 2021, I've done Lost Mods of Phandelver twice. So when looking for new groups, I tend to skip ones doing that adventure since it's a little hat for me. However, while looking at Roll20 one day, I found someone who was running a twist on LMOP, where the PCs are members of the Grandpa Goblins looking to claim the power of the Forge of Spells for themselves. The game is pitched as being the chance to be little goblin chaos bastards, and that was an interesting enough twist for me to apply. I got in, rolled up a Hexblade, which I never played before. I was cautiously optimistic. Game time came and things immediately took a bad turn. While there were other players, the main people in this tale are me, Warlock with a cool weapon, Bard, buckle up kids, Artificer, Bard's husband, DM, a fellow victim in all of this. If the bard is described as buckle up kids, I can only guess what's gonna happen. I'm assuming, right? Let's play a little bit of Bard bingo. Bard is gonna be too horny for everything. Bard will try to do something ridiculous that is gonna astonish the DM and stump him. And then the Bard is probably gonna rage quit. Maybe. Well, we'll see. So we're starting character introductions, and when it's Bard's turn, the first words out of her mouth, and I quote, were, "I want to seduce everyone." I'd heard about this type of bard before, but always found them so absurd. It was a little hard to believe that people actually acted like that. Well, now that I had it dropped in my lap, I managed to never get COVID, but I'd failed to avoid this game absurdity. I mentally groaned and just hoped this would not be too painful. I think it's fine if a bard wants to go through the absurd, jokey, I want to seduce everyone, right? Because everybody understands it's a meme, ha ha ha, get a move on with it, you know, it could be a kind of like an inside joke, especially if it's harmless. It's a whole other story if the bard decides they're going to be hardcore going into this and actually trying to seduce or bang everything. Please don't do that, by the way. Don't be one of those bards that just wants to splooge all over the game. Can't believe I had to say splooge, but yes, don't be a bard that just splooges the entire game. The hope was quickly dashed as Bard suddenly got into an argument with one of her kids, and despite the DM and other members of the party asking, would not shut off her mic. Oh, and one of those people was Artificer, who I remind you was Bard's husband. And here we come to another of Bard's problem traits. She would not mute her mic when dealing with her kids, so we constantly had to listen to argue with her oldest, who I guess was around 7, and the crying and babbling of her youngest, who I guess was 2 or 3. Not a session would go by without Bard having some drama with her kids and a group of strangers of 3 different continents having front row seat to it. Artificer would try telling her to mute the mic, but that would only happen after at least a few minutes of us having to listen to screaming kids. Anyway, back to the horror of session 1. We eventually get started, and the DM explained our goblin tribe has Sildar Halwinter prisoner. Bard jumped in and said she wanted to bring him some food. The DM basically went, sure, you bring him some food. If you know horny Bard horror stories, you know what comes next. Yep, Bard wanted to seduce Sildar. With audible horror in his voice, the DM had another goblin interrupt and tell Bard she has a mission and to go meet the rest of the party. I breathed a mental sigh of relief because I did not sign up for some reverse Goblin Slayer game. If you know, you know. If you don't Google it. Oh, I know. And yeah, don't Google it. At that point, Bard went and I, quote, "Did I boom chicka wow wow with him?" Chicka wow. The DM responded, "No, he didn't understand what you were trying to do." Possibly as a way to give Bard a hint to knock it off. Surprise, it didn't work. Went off on a mission to find some missing goblins. In the nearby forest, we spotted an elderly goblin being chased by some giant birds and moved to intercept. I'll spare you a long combat story, but it was quickly apparent that Bard was totally new to D&D and had no real idea of how to play. And that's fine, we were all new ones. However, despite help from the rest of the party and her husband, Bard simply never learned to play her class. Even by session 6, she didn't understand how to use spells, and even when she couldn't attack enemies, she was several rooms away from this. Anyway, we saved the elderly goblin, and Bard started putting the moves on him. I was pretty creeped out at this point. I reminded Bard that we had a mission and that the party couldn't just camp for the night, and we just left our base simply because she'd blown all her spells in the fight with the birds. When even Artificer took my side, Bard caved. We got on with the mission. Yeah, sorry Bard, you're not going for a goblin gilf? A gilf? Sorry Bard, no gilf for you. After the session, I immediately texted the DM and said, I gotta be upfront, I can't deal with the Bard trying to seduce everyone in sight. He promised to have a word with her, and to both their credit, Bard turned it down a little next session. There, her antics were just throwing an orgy at the end of another mission. The DM was clearly irritated, and all she got from him was basically, yeah, you're here of the tribe now. If you want to do that, there's others who will join in to get on your good side. I'll spare you a lot of other nonsense, but keep in mind that screaming kids and not learning anything about how to play their class was a constant background to everything else. Also, I gotta say, isn't it kind of awkward if she's talking about like bouncy kawawing and going after the GGILFS and having an orgy while her kids are around? I kind of feel like that's, I don't know, talking sexual, even fantasy sexual around your kids, I feel like maybe not a good thing because they're gonna learn it and they're gonna start using Bow Chicken Wow Wow and GGILF and stuff like at school, and that's a great way to get your school to call you home. Anyway, at one point we were talking with an NPC and had managed to roll well enough that she was starting to share information with us. Bard suddenly decided to hit said NPC with vicious mockery because she doesn't like there being another girl around. I barely stopped myself from losing it there. But we managed to smooth things over and the NPC agreed to help us and would go on to be the great asset Bard insisted on and succeeded in stealing from her before leaving though. It's one of those players that wants to be the only gal in a party or the one thing that can do anything in a party. I've seen stories about that. I've seen stories like that where like a healer would be upset that somebody else can heal and they start like causing a lot of drama. There have been some previous horror stories back in the day about these sort of things, and I guess we're having one today with a bard. I can't tell if that's a jealousy thing or being a center of attention thing. It's kind of hard to tell right now, but it's probably one of those. Hop forward to a big dungeon crawl, and Bard was trying to navigate Roll20 from her phone in the room where her toddler is sleeping. A toddler who, unsurprisingly, woke up and started crying because of having her nap time interrupted. This all led to both Bard and Artificer taking forever on their turns because they're both trying to play on their phones and deal with the kids. At one point, Bard kept wanting to attack enemies several rooms away from where she was, and no amount of explanation as to why she couldn't would make her understand. When she was off dealing with her kids again, the DM grumbled, "She doesn't know what's going on." I'm pretty sure this was the final straw for the DM. A few minutes later, we got a message from Bard that she was retiring her character. She later clarified that she enjoyed the game, but was going to have to drop out. Pretty sure the DM just straight up kicked her out of mid-dungeon. But I can't swear to it. I hope the DM at least told her something, because kicking her out midway like that would be kinda rude. Regardless of how rude your problem player is, you shouldn't stoop down to their level and also be equally rude. You should try to let them know and explain to them, hey, all this stuff is kind of a problem, it's not getting fixed, and this is the reason why you've been removed. Anyway, since Bard left, the game had been going well. Artificer's still in, and is honestly a cool guy who really pulls his weight in the group. And in complete fairness to Bard, when we were all just chatting, she was actually a very nice person. Just as the story shows, not the best at reading the room or D&D. So there it is, my horny Bard story. It certainly could have been worse, but it's not something I want to repeat of anytime soon. Thanks for reading. Thank you OP for the post, and I'll never think about a Bard Goblin not wanting to go after a GGILF. Or her trying to bang everything and even having an orgy of all things. Like, listen, I get it, sometimes I want to go with the stereotypical bard, seduce the dragon and stuff, but you gotta read the room with the table and see if maybe it's a little bit obnoxious, or maybe find a more interesting spin. I think a bard that's trying to seduce everybody but keeps failing because one reason or another would be kind of funny as well. Like a little gag, right? A harmless gag that doesn't make anybody feel recoil to play. It's fine to play stereotypes sometimes because, you know, barbarian, big, strong, rage, roar, but not if it's gonna make the rest of your players uncomfortable. Especially if you're trying to seduce everything and you're talking about having orgies with all the goblins and stuff and going after the GGILFs. You know, there's a bit of a line that's kind of been crossed. Just be polite enough to check ahead of time with your group to see if that's okay thing to do. And with that, that's gonna be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales tomorrow. Bye-bye.